Hello, my name is Ben, and this is going to be a book review for The Summoner by Gail Z. Martin, publisher Solaris. It's been a while since I did any sort of book review, so I thought I would talk a little bit about why that is, and actually it has to do a lot with basically what constitutes, I think, as an unfair book review. So there are three things that come to the top of my mind that make kind of an unfair book review. The first time is the first time you ever read a book. This is a little bit like meeting a person and gathering your first impressions. I really like to give a book review about a book that I've already read more than once. That's my preference. I can, do it on a book that I've only read once, but I really do like reading the book a couple times, and that kind of comes into like why I haven't really been doing a lot of book reviews, because I've been reading a lot of new material for the first time, and they're good books, so I intend to read them again and give them their proper reviews. And it also means that you've been getting like sort of so-so books that I'm kind of on the fence about. Another thing that constitutes I think what would constitute an unfair book review is kind of an already spoiled book. The easiest analogy would be when you go and see a movie and you've already seen the spoilers, and so like you get to the movie and you realize that the whole entire plot has already been spoiled, and like all the good parts have already been like shown in the movie spoiler, and you're like, what's the point of me being here? I just watched 15 an hour and 30 minutes of basically spoilers. So that kind of leaves a little bad feeling about like the experience, and makes any sort of review about that subject possibly unfair. And the one that this is suffering greatly over, in addition to the first time I've ever read it, I had expectations, and of course great expectations can pretty much win out over anything. And so because the book did not meet my expectations, and the expectations were not did not really line up to like what was actually inside the book. It means that the book I didn't really judge the book by its own story. I didn't really judge the book by its own merit. I had expectations, it didn't match those expectations, and thus it failed automatically, whether or not it was a good book or not. So The Summoner, what is it about? Okay, so another reviewer asked me to read the little blurb on the back so they could at least know a little bit about the book, and I thought that was a pretty good idea, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. The Summoner, Book 1 of the Chronicles of the Necromancer. The world of Prince Mantress and Drake is thrown into sudden chaos when his brother murders their father and seizes the throne. More accurately, that would be their family, and seizes the throne. Forced to flee with only a handful of loyal colleagues to support him, Mantress Drake must seek retribution and restore his father's honor. But if the living are arrayed against him, Mantress must learn to harness his burgeoning magical powers to call in a different set of allies, the ranks of the dead. The Summoner is an epic, engrossing tale of loss and revenge, of life and the afterlife, and the thin line between them. So, one of the reasons that I haven't really read a lot of blurbs on the back is because it's always a question of like, does the blurb on the back actually, does it actually match what's in the book? And already I kind of stopped and paused when the part where Mantress Drake has to is thrown into chaos because his brother murders his father and his family. That constitutes about 40 pages of the book, about the first 40-80 pages. And then learning to harness his magical powers, I would say that was like the last 40 pages of the book. So the blurb on the back doesn't quite really represent the main part of the book, except for this short little clause said "forced to flee." That makes up that portion of the book. So yeah, so the blurb on the back did say that he's just forced to flee, but if you really want to know about what the book's about, it's an action-adventure story of where they're fleeing from, the powers that his evil brother is, manifesting against him. Okay, so what I think of like the plot and the story. What I would really wanted from a Necromancer book was sort of like talking about would be a book and a storyline that covered sort of the grisly details of like, you know, what you may gain by reanimating the dead, and why you could gain, you know, potentially, you know, huge forces of power by reanimating the dead, but then you might not, it might be a grisly experience, and it's also sort of, you know, borderline morally, you know, is it right to reanimate loved ones and make them fight on your behalf, you know, that sort of thing. And that's this. The necromancy in this book is a little bit more like spiritual ghosts, spirits, lost souls, and the motivations of those spirits all seem to be like, you know, I will do a task for you, or I will, you know, not haunt you, I will not, you know, use my spiritual powers to make your life, you know, a living hell, as long as you fulfill one simple thing. And all the spirits seem to have in common, which is, if, as long as you can send my spirit to rest. That's like one of the only like main motivations that the undead seem to have. And so it kind of like, you know, doesn't really bring a lot of depth into like the undead, because it's there, rather than having an opportunity for, you know, some of them being protectorates. Like one of the spirits in the book is a protectorate of a, you know, magical sword. Most of the other ones just want to be put at rest, and so it sort of is a lost opportunity. The characters in the book, I didn't really feel had a lot of depth. They're all sort of reactionary in the sense that they're all fleeing. Their goals are like set up on page 1, and they're all, the entire book is them just trying to fulfill those goals. There's no real character development about other kinds of things. There is sort of your token romance that develops, but you can kind of see it coming from like a million miles away, so it's not exactly surprising. Whether the reason I'm like doing the review is because I don't know whether I'm going to read the next book. This book took me a really long time to finish. And I don't know whether or not that lack of engagement was just because of sort of a mediocre plot, or whether or not it's just, this is a good book and, you know, my expectations weren't fulfilled. The level of detail I thought was about like different characters, costumes, settings, I thought was okay. I never really noticed it, so it never was a problem. I think that because they're forcing to flee and they're traveling a lot of ground, I think the author could have taken a little bit more thematic sort of license. In other words, like if you're traveling through a forest, you could the author could have done a little bit more to sort of let the reader do the work for them, and like make, you know, sort of the cliche references to, now they're passing through a forest, they're passing through a swampland, they're passing through like the mountainous terrain, and sort of let the reader just fulfill in the blanks. You know, that's a shortcut on making sort of a detailed description without like spending a lot of page time on it. So the level of detail on the settings I think could have been a little bit better. The plot I did not find engaging, but it could have been my expectations. I would probably not recommend this book for really anybody else, based on my experience of it. I think that if you're looking for a man forced to flee and has a relationship, like sort of a, you know, a working relationship with spirits, and able to like, you know, gather information from them, able to put them to a task, able to lay their souls at rest, then this book might be for you, okay? But if you want more of kind of a grisly necromancer book about, you know, forces of magical powers, I don't think that this book is for you, and that's what I was hoping to get out of the book, so it fell short of my own expectations. I think the author did an okay job. I think the characters could have used a little bit more development. Like I said, most of them have their goals set out in the first couple pages, and then they're not really much development past that. But you know, they're sort of in a reactionary plot. You're forced to flee. Okay, you know, I mean, so, you know, what do you take out of that? You know, it's going to be based upon the reader. And I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the book in this short period of time. Got a short period of time, it's 10 minutes. All right. Anyway, The Summoner by Gail Z. Martin. I'd probably rate it maybe a 5. It was okay. I didn't not read it, but you know, not what I was looking for. All right, good day. Have fun.